Welcome back to EDH Deck Building. I am your host, Demo, and I got another spoiler video here for you from Phyrexia All Will Be One. I hadn't planned on making another one, but I'm going to make another one for kind of a bit of a specific reason, because there's an issue I want to talk about here. And I've been thinking about how I'm going to do the sort of roundup for this set when all the cards have been spoiled, talking about the best cards and the best commanders and all that kind of stuff. I think I'm going to do it a little bit differently than I normally do, because I'm sort of noticing a bit of a trend with this set. I'm going to talk about some commanders here, and I'm going to start out with what I think are actually maybe the more interesting ones, and then we'll go from there, all right? So I'm going to start out with Unctus Grand Metatech. 1 blue Phyrexian Vidalkin. And it's an artifact creature. It's a 2/4. Other blue creatures you control have, whenever this creature becomes tapped, draw a card, then discard a card. That's a very interesting ability. And if I didn't look at anything else on this commander, I would be like, there's something that you could absolutely build an entire deck around, right? You're in a both, and whenever you have a commander that's looting, it doesn't look like much, but man, there's a lot you can do. I actually recently made a Vohar deck, a very, sort of passed over commander that we got recently. It's Dimir, and it basically is just tap and loot, right? And whenever you're doing that, there's actually a lot you can do because you're in a draw theme. So anything with draw triggers works here, and anything that is, also in a discard theme. So anything with discard triggers work here. So the draw card thing works here. Also the I draw my second card each turn works here. Whenever you discard a card, that works here. Whenever putting stuff into your graveyard, obviously, because there's actually lots of cards that you want in your graveyard, that works here as well, right? So just that ability, and the fact that other blue creatures you control have, whenever this creature becomes tapped, now also means that you can be in a tapping theme, which is kind of funny because I have an Abishon deck, and that's sort of the idea behind that deck. Is I kind of want my creatures to be tapped, sort of, not really. Like Fallow Sage is a card that I think would probably work nicely in Unctus for that reason. I have that in my Abishon deck. I could probably throw Unctus in my Abishon deck because, often I'm using that ability where I'm tapping all creatures. So when my creatures become tapped, I get to loot for all of them. Pretty handy. I don't know if these other abilities fit. Probably not. Other artifact creatures you control get +1/+1. Okay. I'm at a point now where I actually don't like when they throw that on commanders, because when they do that, like, I would much rather see this commander not an artifact creature and not with the artifact creature tribal thing at all. Just that first ability, nothing else. This would be a really interesting build around. Putting that Anthem on there just makes people want to turn this into an artifact creature tribal deck, which I don't think it needs to be. We already have a ton of commanders in the format that are doing that, and we certainly don't need more of that. That first ability, I think, is really, really interesting. And you could ignore it. Sure, you could ignore it. But the fact that they put that on there, that kind of stuff, I think, makes a commander less popular. And the reason why, and I'm going to go into with a lot of these commanders, the reason why I'm making this video is because I'm going to go into the design aspect of things that they're doing with commanders lately that I actually don't like. When you put too much stuff on there, I find it makes commanders less popular. It would be kind of weird not to put any artifact creatures in this deck, or if you had a couple, that the Anthem's not really helping you. So it's kind of weird to build a deck where you have this Anthem on your commander that you're not actually taking advantage of, right? So it's almost better if they don't have that on there, even though people will say, oh, well, now I can build an artifact. Yeah, but first of all, we have a lot of artifact tribal commanders, and then putting that Anthem on there is really not that big of a benefit for artifact creature tribal. +1/+1, who cares, right? That doesn't really do much for you in an artifact creature, mono blue artifact creature tribal theme, I don't think. Pay 1 blue Phyrexian mana. Until end of turn, target creature you control becomes a blue artifact in addition to its other colors and types. I did not look at that ability yet, and that's interesting. Oh, that's kind of funny. Okay, so now we have to look at another card, Grand Architect, and that's what I think they're playing off this a little bit, right? This guy is sort of a... So now I'm wondering if this is just a flavor thing with the artifact creatures, because Grand Architect is sort of the inverse, and obviously this would be great in the deck. This is giving your blue creatures an Anthem, And I think I had mentioned this guy in one of my should be commanders videos because I thought, man, this guy really looks like a commander with the stuff he's doing. And obviously they thought so too. Unctus is sort of the inverse of this, where you're giving the blue creatures the anthem instead of the artifact creatures, and target artifact creature becomes blue until end of turn. Whereas Unctus is target creature you control becomes a blue artifact in addition to its other colors and types until end of turn. So it's turning your creatures into artifacts in order to give them the anthem, I guess. But again, Grand Architect says tap and untap blue creature you control. So that seems like a way better benefit to I turn an artifact creature into a blue creature so that I can then tap it to add 2 colorless. Maybe that's why they're, again, the build around here is that first ability. There's a ton you can do there. The artifact anthem is just like, I don't really care about that. And this last ability, turning a creature you control into a blue artifact. So it's becoming a blue creature. If it's an artifact creature, you're now making it a blue creature. It's still an artifact, obviously, because this says just target creature you control. So you can turn a artifact creature that isn't blue into a blue artifact, and you can turn a blue creature that isn't an artifact into an artifact creature that's also blue. Again, though, and I know people will say, okay, well, now you can load up your deck with artifact creatures that aren't obviously blue, and then you can just turn them blue in order to use that first ability. I don't think that's a great, like, why would you either you're spending the mana or the life to just turn your artifact creatures into blue creatures to use that first ability, just for what? So that you can get that +1/+1 anthem, which again, I don't think is very relevant. I would rather just load this deck up with blue creatures, right? I have a blue creature, like a fallow sage, or maybe just a fairy seer or something, enters the battlefield, gives me some benefit, and then it can sit there and I can swing with it, and when it becomes tapped, I get the loot. That's how I would build this deck. So maybe, again, I like the flavor here where it's like they turned Grand Architect. This is like the inverse of a Grand Architect, which is a great creature, and I think it probably would go in this deck for sure. I think it's an interesting commander for sure. Again, I don't need any of that other stuff. I'm only building this deck probably around the first ability. The other stuff, I get it's added bonus, but I think it maybe mucks things up a little, and I don't know if it's necessary. Moving on. All right, Malcader Purity Overseer, 1 white and a blue Phyrexian elephant wizard. It's an elephant wizard, everybody. A Phyrexian elephant wizard. That's a heck of a creature type. Definitely a first. So I guess you could put Elephant Graveyard in this deck, right? Unfortunately, it's a really expensive card, but if you got one, if you ever have a commander that's an elephant, there's only a few. Elephant Graveyard is going to let you regenerate your commander, which is great, right? So it's a 1/1. When Malcader Purity Overseer enters the battlefield, create a 3/3 colorless Phyrexian Golem artifact creature token. Okay, so we got an ETB here. So again, any Conjurer's Closet, I can just blink my commander on the end step, get another colorless Golem artifact token. At the beginning of your end step, if 3 or more artifacts enter the battlefield under your control this turn, create a 3/3 Phyrexian Golem artifact creature token. I know I talked about in my year-end review video about all the commanders that are coming out, and I'm like, well, it's a good thing, right? Because now we have more to choose from, and somebody who wants to do an Azorius Golem Tribal deck now has an option for that. But looking at some of the commanders that are coming out in this set, and that's sort of one of the topics I want to talk about in this video, is now I'm wondering if it's just making Wizards of the Coast lazy with their commander design. We're getting to the point now we're getting lots of commanders, and yeah, they're lots of different designs, but really we're not seeing anything new. You just have a commander that enters the battlefield and creates a token, and you're making Golem tokens. You can do Golem Tribal, which we already have options for that. This is just an Azorius Colors. And yeah, it gives you more options, but I'm looking at this set overall and I'm just thinking we're doing a whole lot of the same stuff, just tweaked it a little bit. There's not really a whole lot of commanders in this set that has gotten me super exciting, because we're just doing a whole lot of the same thing, just with a tiny tweak. And I'm wondering if Wizards of the Coast now is just getting lazy with all their designs, because there just seems to be nothing super interesting about this. I know a lot of people will like it. Well, some people, I definitely won't think a lot of people will like this commander, but it just seems like they're getting a little lazy with their designs here. And we'll see this again with some of these other commanders we're going to look at. It's a little disheartening, I think. I'm sort of eating my words here a little bit with what I said at the end of the year about how, hey, why not have all these commanders? It only increases diversity in the format, but it's not really that diverse when you have a commander that is just entering the battlefield and it's just creating artifact golem tokens. Yeah. Anyway, moving on. Ria Ivor, Bane of Bladehold, 2 white and a black. Phyrexia Knight 3/4 has Battle Cry. At the beginning of combat on your turn, the next time target creature would deal combat damage to one or more players this combat, prevent that damage. If damage is prevented this way, create that many 1/1 colorless Phyrexian Might artifact creature tokens with toxic 1, and this creature can't block. See what I mean? I mean, again, and I there was a couple in here that I grabbed where I'm like, I'm getting a little bored reading this card. This is one that I hadn't really even looked at, and it sort of fits the idea of what I'm talking about, where, okay, we got an Azorius commander, it's creating tokens, it's doing it in a little bit of a different way, but it's just doing the same thing. I guess you could put this in one of those other Azorius commander decks that are already making tokens. You know, a lot of these commanders that I'm looking at now, I'm thinking they're way more likely to fit into the 99, right? A lot of the commanders in this set overall are probably going to be put in the 99 decks more so than actually as commanders. Who's going to go after this? You know, and does it really matter if someone goes after this commander? If nobody does, if this has like 10 decks on EDH Rec by the end of the year, who's going to care? Well, like I said in the video that I did, the group that it hurts the most is Wizards of the Coast, because they're going through all the effort of designing these cards and printing them, and nobody's really using them. So it hurts them more than anyone else. But also we're getting to the point now where maybe they're getting a little lazy with their commander design, and maybe they're running out of ideas. They've made so many commanders in the past few years that all the interesting ideas are gone to the wayside. Although I will say, you know, if you look at the custom commander creations that I do from my patrons, and I also did one for custom Dragon Highlander, I believe it's called. I did a video for them as well. Lots of interesting commanders there. So maybe Wizards of the Coast should let the Magic players more so. And honestly, I think this is a great idea. And Wizards of the Coast should maybe even have a contest where they let people submit commanders, because the players are coming up with way more interesting commanders than is Wizards of the Coast, in my opinion. And, you know, I'm going to go on a bit of a rant here, but I think it's relevant. If you look at the invitational cards, okay, and a lot of people, especially newer players, don't know this because they don't do this anymore. They had something called the Invitational, where they would invite a whole bunch of really popular Magic players, and the winner of that tournament, if I remember correctly, got to design their own card, okay? And those cards were always really, really popular cards because they were cards designed by players, right? Dark Confidant was an invitational card, okay? Sad Robot, Solemn Simulacrum was an invitational card, one of my favorite cards of all time. Sylvan Safekeeper, very popular card in the format, was an invitational card. You guys can go look at all the invitational cards. They're all really great designs designed by players. And I think they should do that more. I don't think they do it enough. Just saying, I'm going off on a tangent here, but man, a lot of these commanders that I'm seeing are just like, meh, next, you know? It's either they have this really powerful ability that is just generically powerful, or they're just kind of boring and they're doing something that we've already seen 1,000 times before. There's really only a couple of commanders that I've seen from this set that I think are really interesting and that I actually would like to make a deck with. And that's why it's going to be really difficult. I'm going to have to come up with a new way to do my best commanders from the set, because I'm not even sure how to do it exactly. I'm going to have to come up with something new. Moving on, we got Urtet, Remnant of Memnark. 3 mana, legendary artifact, creature, mirror. And as soon as I saw this card, I didn't have to go any further. I knew exactly what it was. I saw clearly a mirror in the art, and it's a legendary artifact creature mirror, and I didn't have to see anything else. I knew exactly what it was doing. That's how predictable this is becoming with these commanders, right? That it's a lot of times, as soon as I see the creature type, I know what's going on. And I saw the Wooburg pips there, and I'm like, I know exactly what this is. It is a mere tribal commander, right? Because we don't have one. Technically, we don't have one yet, so we better get one, right? And it's just becoming... okay, mere tribal command. It used to be when a commander like this came out, people got really excited about it. I don't know if anyone's getting excited about this. I certainly am not. I'm like, oh, mere tribal commander, yay. Whenever you cast a mirror spell, create a 1/1 colorless mirror artifact creature token. Okay. At the beginning of combat on your turn, untap each mirror you control. You know, generically good stuff for any mirror deck, right? They stapled abilities on this commander so that no matter what mirror you throw in this deck, it's going to give you these generically good abilities. And then we can pay Wooburg and tap, and of course we now again have a colorless commander with Wooburg and its casting cost, so it's a 5-color commander, which, you know, they didn't learn their lesson from Golos. I guess how else would you do this? If you're going to make a 5-color mirror commander, you would have to. It obviously has to be an artifact creature, but does it have to be 5 colors? I don't know. I just think, I think this would have been more interesting if they only made it 2 or 3 colors, but that's just me. So pay Wooburg and tap, put 3+1/+1 counters on each mirror you control. Activate only during your turn. Again, we just have 3 generically good abilities here for Mirror Tribal. Not even anything really interesting in my opinion. It's just I'm creating Mirror tokens. I am untapping all my creatures because a lot of Mirror have tap abilities, and then I'm putting counters on all my creatures. Just generically good stuff. Nothing really interesting as a build around here. Super boring. I know there's people that are going to like this. It's probably going to be popular. A lot of people are going to be like, yay, we finally got a Mirror Tribal commander, but I'm like, I don't think we needed it. I've made a lot of Mirror Tribal decks, okay? And none of them were 5-color. There's enough Mirror Tribal support out there. For those who don't know, there's a lot. There's enough Mirror Tribal support out there that you don't even need a Mirror Commander in order to make a Mirror Tribal deck, in my opinion. Because, of course, most Mirror are colorless. You don't need a 5-color commander, because they're all artifact creatures. So 90% of the Mirror Tribal stuff is going to be colorless anyway. Why do we need a 5-color commander for this? We don't, right? This is completely unnecessary in my opinion. The Mirror Mana Dorks is pretty much one of the only things you need a 5-color commander for, right? So, you know, I toyed with the idea of a Morite of the Frost deck because, of course, Morite is a changeling, so it's technically a mirror. So you could easily do that. Just generically good abilities. It is very, in my opinion, this is reminiscent of, I can't even remember the name now, the 5-color Shrine Commander, where again, I don't think we needed that. I don't think we needed a 5-color Shrine Commander. Essentially, it's a 5-color Enchantment Tribal Commander. I don't think we needed it. I predicted that it was going to be really popular, and of course it is. This might be the same. It's just generically good stuff for a Mirror Tribal deck. I think it's still going to be popular though, because people really like that tribal stuff. But again, I just think we're getting a little lazy with the commander design here. And we're going to end off today with Drivnod, Carnage, Dominus, 3 black, Phyrexian Horror, 8/3. That's a big boy, eh? If a creature dying causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. Okay. First of all, we already have this. You know, just taking an ability and then applying it in a slightly different color combination, to me, that's just lazy. Can we do something else? And I realize that there is a cycle of cards here, obviously. That we have another ability here. Pay 2 black Phyrexian mana, exile 3 creature cards from your graveyard, put an indestructible counter on Drivnod, Carnage, Dominus. Great ability. I love, they have a whole cycle of these where they're using, you know, whatever their first ability is, they're sort of playing into the synergy of that first ability to put an indestructible counter on themselves. Again, Nesting Grounds is going to be a phenomenal fit here. But other than the fact that you're putting an indestructible counter on your commander, to me, that's almost more interesting than the first ability. Wow, we got another commander that cares about dice triggers. We got another commander that works great with the whole sacrifice theme, aristocrats theme. There's a million commanders already that like that in mono black and also in other black combination of colors. Again, this guy's going to go in the 99 of a ton of decks. This is just another generically good card that can go in a ton of decks. And, you know, maybe this is what Sheldon Menery was talking about with the Elishnorn, where here's a generically good mono white card that can go in a ton of decks. I think that he was overreacting a little, but it certainly is the case that card is going to go in the 99 of more decks than it's going to be a commander, and the same is here. And a lot of these cards, I'm looking at these commanders, a lot of them, and I'm just thinking, why is this even a commander? This guy could easily just be a Phyrexian Horror, and there's nothing that to me feels like a legendary creature here, really. This could easily just be a normal, ordinary creature It certainly is build aroundable, but there's nothing unique. To me, that second ability with the indestructible counter is more of a unique build aroundable ability than is the first ability. 90% of the cards in this deck are going to be the same cards you would put in a Taste of Karlov deck, or the same cards that you would put in any sacrifice theme deck. You're just going to be using all the same things. You just have a different commander at the helm. And again, same goes for a lot of these commanders. Not anything unique or interesting going on here at all. I don't want to hate on it too much, okay? And again, the reason why I wanted to do one more spoiler video, and I will talk about this more when I do my best commanders from the set. You know, this is obviously a standard set. It doesn't have to be great for commander, but they are clearly making these commanders so that people will go after them to play them in commander, but there's just nothing, there's not a lot of commanders here that are interesting or unique or whatever. Like I said, that Unctus, that guy's first ability is more interesting of a build around for me than anything else I saw on any of these cards. The rest of Unctus's abilities and all the abilities on all the others, these other cards. That one ability of when my blue creatures become tapped, I get to loot, is way more interesting of a build around than anything I saw in any of these other cards. Putting +1/+1 counters on your creatures, yay! Or whenever I cast a mirror spell, I get another mirror token. Okay. I mean, none of that is interesting build around. Again, you know, this is just my opinion as a deck builder. I'm not getting excited about a lot of the commanders that I'm seeing here. And I get it's a standard set, and it definitely does feel like maybe they are engineering this set more for standard than they are for commander, which is perfectly fine. I'm okay with that, for sure. And overall, from what I've seen, I haven't seen the entire set yet, but definitely I would say already that this is not a great commander set. But we're getting to a point now where I think they're getting a little lazy with the commander design, which, you know, it's like, okay, that's fine. I'm okay with that. We don't need a bunch of great new commanders. We already got lots, but why are you even doing it then? Why even make these legendary creatures? Why not just make them regular creatures, right? That's my thinking on it. Anyway, let me know. I probably went way long on this video. Let me know what you guys think of these new commanders, or, you know, in general, the topic I was talking about in this video. Let me know in the comments below. That is it for today. Thanks for tuning in.